And this will be live.
Yeah, and I'm setting up live right now. Actually, we should be streaming. You can check on your side in YouTube if you want.
DC Productions on the track. New Productions exclusive. Fracking beat.
What's going on, everybody? This is Case Study QB, and this is a new show that we are presenting today. It's going to be a bi-weekly show focused on New Jersey. It's called the New Jersey Progressive Power Hour with my man, Charlie Kratovil. Go ahead. How you doing, Charlie?
I'm good, Case. How are you?
Hey, I'm excellent. I'm so excited about this new show. Welcome to the team, Charlie. You know, Charlie has his own online article, paper that he's going to be talking about based in New Brunswick. He's also a great journalist that has a connection to Keene Journalist School. And I want you to also talk about that. So talk about your newspaper and talk about your connection to Keene.
Sure. I'm actually a Rutgers alum here. I'm a big Rutgers guy here in New
I
Brunswick.
apologize. Let me jump in.
Okay.
It's not Keene. Keene is closer to me. That's why that college is on my mind. So yes, Rutgers. Go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah, and thanks again for the opportunity. I'm here in our studio for New Brunswick Today, where we've been broadcasting for 2021. It's obviously a crazy time right now with the pandemic, and I know we got slammed with a bunch of snow this month, but you know, the point of this show is to just walk you through some of the top stories that you might have missed over the past month. We've got a number of stories that are, you know, going to have a lasting significance for the state of New Jersey, and also, you know, they have an impact on the progressive movement, which is growing here in New Jersey. So we're going to focus in with a special lens on the progressive movement.
Yeah, totally. So as you can see, Charlie also has the New Brunswick Today in the corner. That's his baby. And definitely check out, yeah, he's got the mug too. Love it. So check out his website. What's the website, Charlie?
NewBrunswickToday.com, and we're on all the social media channels at New Brunswick Today.
Awesome. So this is kind of a collaboration between Case Study QB and New Brunswick Today. And I'm in New Jersey, so I was thinking this would be a great opportunity to do highlights of stories in New Jersey that progressives care about, or from a progressive point of view. So I'm so excited to work with Charlie on this venture. And with that said, let's get to the first story, Charlie.
So big news this week. Finally, after years and years of struggle and years of politicking, cannabis is legalized in the state of New Jersey. On Monday, Governor Phil Murphy finally signed the legislation that voters ultimately called on him to sign in a ballot question that passed overwhelmingly last November. New Jersey became the 14th state in the United States to legalize marijuana for adult use,
Awesome.
recreational use. We have had a medical marijuana program on the books for the past decade. It was one of the weakest in the country, and it was expanded under Governor Murphy, but a lot of folks were upset because Murphy had sort of promised to deliver full legalization within his first 100 days in office. We are far beyond that. It's more like 1,100 days at this point. Governor Murphy, of course, running for re-election already for a second term, but they did get it done. Again, that happened on Monday, several months after voters overwhelmingly approved that constitutional amendment to allow the legislature to legalize adult use cannabis. Not a perfect law, of course. There's some weak points that folks are criticizing, including the fact that it's still a very serious crime to grow, to cultivate your own marijuana in the state of New Jersey. There's no changes to that part of the law, but possession of amounts under 6 ounces is no longer an arrestable offense. And so we are going to finally see an end to all of the marijuana arrests that have been continuing in, for so long here in New Jersey. So I think we have a clip of some media coverage.
I'm going to show
of this.
a clip, but before I do that, I want to ask you, Charlie, why do you think Governor Murphy took so long? And do you know if something forced his hand for it to happen? Because I believe it was a referendum, right? Did the referendum force his hand?
Yeah. So in New Jersey, it's kind of weird because the people don't have the power to put statewide questions on the ballot. Only the legislature has the right to do that. So what the legislature did last year was said, instead of us having a vote on legalizing marijuana, let's have the people have the vote. But the way that they worded the constitutional amendment, it still required the legislature to act after the vote. And so all of that time last year, they could have been hashing out all these differences. Obviously, there were disagreements over how to handle situations where people who are less than 21 years old may be in possession of marijuana. Obviously, most people don't want to see a lot of people roped into the criminal justice system charged with serious crimes just for marijuana. But it was a sticking point of how exactly to handle that situation, and a sticking point that kept dragging out on and on. So even after the question passed overwhelmingly in November, we still saw political jockeying, fighting over how this would be implemented well into January and then February. So ultimately, it's not just up to Governor Murphy. The legislature had to pass a law that they could all agree on, and it seemed to start and stop, and the story kept changing all the time. But finally, there was enough agreement to get a bill through the Senate and the Assembly, and Governor Murphy signed it with just minutes to go before his period of time to decide what he was going to do was about to run out.
Wow. So I know I saw on New Jersey Twitter, which I guess I might try to coin that right now, New Jersey Twitter. I saw like Hector Osegueda, some of my allies from Progressive Democrats of New Jersey. They were talking about and complaining about how even though the referendum passed, like they had up to like 6,000 cases, I believe, that still was being prosecuted.
Yeah. And finally this week, the Attorney General did order that all those cases be dismissed. But, there's still a lot to be done in the righting the wrong section of what we need to do now.
Cool. All right. I'm going to show this video on this very topic, fresh from this morning.
New Jersey is now the 14th state to legalize recreational marijuana.
But it's likely the first to link it to social justice reforms. Ron Allen has our State of the Struggle report.
For Regina Howard, convicted of a low-level drug charge 4 years ago, New Jersey's new marijuana laws may help her finally put that in the past.
I just feel like ever since then, it's been stuck to me like glue. I can't get the job that I really would like to get. It's hard.
The new marijuana laws expunge thousands of drug convictions and will stop most arrests, with African Americans nearly 4 times more likely to get arrested for possession.
New Jersey's broken and indefensible marijuana laws, which disproportionately hurt communities of color, are no more.
The new laws also set up a multi-million-dollar cannabis industry and direct some 70% of the tax revenue to communities with the highest drug arrest rates.
What's been the impact on communities like this?
Harmful. It's been devastating. Families have been torn apart.
Lawmaker Jamel Holly says the national reckoning about racial inequality helped build support for the new laws.
Any individual or community and family that have been hardest hit on the war on drugs, we want to restore their rights to become productive citizens.
You're going to apply for a license?
I am.
Now, entrepreneurs like Leo Bridgewater want to get into the state's new cannabis industry. Medical marijuana, legal here since 2010, is already big business, and critics say with very little minority inclusion.
I think it's a serious disjustice. So you're going to lock me up for this, turn around, make a buck off of it, and lock me out?
He and many others hoping New Jersey's new marijuana laws correct old injustices from the past. Ron Allen, NBC News, Newark.
Our thanks to Ron Allen. It seems like a tide is changing also because there's in the Biden administration, they're changing guidelines now that staffers, potential staffers, won't necessarily be completely disqualified if they've had past marijuana use. So that's a big step of the federal government as well.
Quite a difference from the previous administration when it comes to this particular thing. And many other states are actually pushing now as well to legalize.
All right. Yeah. So I'll let you comment first before I jump in there.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that I think we all can recognize now. Should have happened a long time ago, especially young people who, have lived through this drug war for their whole lives, understand that, this is the type of thing that is holding our society back. It's, punishing people for, a victimless crime. And it's something that needed to be changed. And I think a lot of us knew that. It was just a question of how are we going to get the political power to do it. And we've seen on this issue over the past 10 years, a big change in terms of states taking action and politicians changing their long-held views about the drug war and about marijuana prohibition. And so it's the result of a movement that's come together, a really impressive movement that's been growing over time. And I think we'll see more states follow New Jersey's lead.
I would love to see way more interaction or benefits towards the community that's been hurt. I mean, just decimated by the war on drugs. So I think from what I remember, I think they said like a third or a certain percentage is going to go to allow minorities and people of color to create dispensaries and to benefit and to create the businesses. I think it should be 90%. I think it should be, go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah, well, no, I think we definitely need to do better than what's in the legislation. I know, for instance, New Jersey Weed Man does have a lawsuit against the state that's, making that case that, this is legalization that is going to benefit large corporate, businesses that want to profit off of this, mostly owned by white people. And I think there's, a real concern, real legitimate concern that folks who have been supplying marijuana over the years are going to have a harder time of actually trying to join the legitimate sector of marijuana businesses. But it remains to be seen how this is all going to be implemented. We don't have any dispensaries up and running for recreational use at this time. It'll probably be at least 6 months before we see that. And, remains to be seen who's going to be profiting off of it and who's going to be employed in that sector.
Yeah. So it's definitely all right.
So we'll move on to our second story of the day. Looking back on the month of February, we see, you don't see this every day, but we do see it quite a bit in New Jersey, a corrupt mayor sentenced to prison. No, I'm not talking about the Atlantic City mayor. I'm talking about the mayor of Middlesex Borough, Middlesex Borough Mayor Ron DeMura. And I'll actually show you. I took this video of him walking out of the Middlesex County Courthouse after being sentenced to 7 years in state prison. He was the mayor of Middlesex Borough from 2016 to 2019. And he's been awaiting a final sentence in this case for over a year now. He was indicted in December 2019. And Mr. DeMura left behind a real mess in Middlesex Borough. It's actually the town I grew up in. And he was the mayor there again from 2016 to 2019, but he was also very involved in the Democratic Party politics. And he now becomes the third mayor in recent memory here in Middlesex County to be convicted of crimes. We had, of course, here John Lynch Jr. From New Brunswick and Perth Amboy's Joe Voss. Both pled guilty to federal crimes. This was a little different. It was a state case. And he was accused of defrauding his own friends and supporters, pretending to be a financial advisor and stealing their money for his own purposes. He created a charity that was basically a front, said that they were giving money for scholarships to students from the town. Only a small fraction of the funds actually went there. The rest were stolen by him. And so brazen, he even stole from the campaigns where he was the treasurer. So he was, very involved again in the local Democratic Party. So he was using the campaign funds as well on himself. There was a very moving testimony given by some of his victims to the judge in court on February 16th. The judge ultimately did sentence him to that 7-year sentence, but he might not have to spend 7 years in prison. That's not always how it works. He is ordered to pay $83,000 and change to his victims, and he's got to forfeit another $163,000 that he stole from the campaign organizations, which no longer exist. So that money would have to go to the state. And top Democrats around New Jersey have been silent on this issue. In particular, Governor Murphy. I asked him on August 14th if he had any comment on the mayor's guilty plea, and he said, quote, "I have no comment on the mayor's situation. Not surprisingly, I've read about it in the papers, but I've got no specifics." He was he did participate in a campaign kickoff event with that mayor in 2017 when he was running for governor. There's a photo of them together, but he has not condemned the crime, has not really commented on this case. And the same is true for Kevin McCabe, the chairman of the Middlesex County Democratic Organization. He has not responded to any of my emails or phone calls asking for a comment about this. He's, of course, the chairman of the County Democratic Organization. So you'd think he would be really upset and vocal if one of his mayors was stealing funds from the political campaigns that they were all
100%.
trying to win. But no comment from Kevin McCabe. Of course, I did run against him for chairman last year, so maybe that's why he doesn't want to talk to me about it. But we have not heard from some of these top officials in the Democratic Party not condemning this, which, of course, can send the wrong message that this kind of thing is okay. If folks don't condemn it. So Ron DeMura looking at 7-year prison sentence, but the trick is there's a program called ISP, Intensive Supervisory Program. This is offered to some inmates. You can apply for it once you get 60 days behind bars. And this is definitely a possibility for this defendant. If he plays his cards right, he could be out sooner than we think. He is not in prison yet because of the COVID pandemic. The judge gave the former mayor an extra 60 days to be free, and he has to make a good faith effort to try to get a vaccine in those 60 days, and then he would have to surrender at the Middlesex County Jail in April of this year, at which point he would begin his 7-year sentence. But it was pretty clear from the discussion in the courtroom that he does intend to apply for ISP, and if he gets into the ISP program, he could be released by this time next year. So really interesting case. Of course, Middlesex Borough still cleaning up the mess this guy left behind. He worked out some really strange deals with a developer. Turns out that developer had also contributed to this phony charity of his and he will have to pay that developer back $10,000. And also now the town has to deal with that developer failing to pay the payments in lieu of taxes on the developments that they built. And just this week at the Middlesex Borough Council meeting, it came out that the mayor had apparently switched some sewer accounts from active to inactive so that his friends would not have to pay sewer bills.
What?
So that just came out this week at the council meeting, that there were about 40 or more accounts. The mayor had personally, tampered with the settings to benefit his friends and allies. So more to come. We'll see if maybe even more charges come down the way for ex-mayor DeMura, and we'll see also if Governor Murphy will ever comment on this now that the plea is official and accepted, and he has been convicted. And we'll certainly continue to ask for answers on this. So, what do you think, Charlie, of that one, Case?
I got a couple questions for you, man. So the first thing, for the love of God, no Democrat has commented on this. Like, no one in office, nobody of any stature.
Yeah, I mean, I did have to press the county commissioners on this, and ultimately I got them to say that they condemn all crime. But it was kind of I had to ask multiple times to get them just to address this, and even then they were being evasive and trying to make it about something else.
See, this is why people want to have a third party, and they're fighting to just get rid of the whole Democratic party altogether. And that's absolutely crazy. The other question I have for you is, how many years was this mayor in power for? Do you know?
So he was started running for stuff around 2012. So he did serve on the council for a few years, but then he became mayor after the 2015 election. And he finished a full term, he fell 1 month short of finishing a full term. He was not reelected. He lost reelection in 2019 to a Republican candidate, and he was indicted a month later and resigned right away, just a few days or hours after that indictment came down. But he did serve almost a full term as mayor of Middlesex Borough right here in Middlesex County.
Wow, because the reason why I ask is I'm curious how fast it takes for someone to get this corrupt. Because usually the person, you have great intentions to do something for your community. That's usually how it starts off. And then slowly over time, you start, cutting corners, and people who are already in office or in certain areas are showing you the lay of the land, and maybe they'll say, hey, you can do this for me, and I'll do, I would think it happens over time, but it seemed like it happened pretty quickly, Charlie.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things our article on NewBrunswickToday.com gets into is that there were red flags. So before the Democratic Party ever put this guy up for office or put him in charge of the money for their campaigns, they could have looked up the records that would have shown that when he was an insurance broker, that he had to relinquish his license for forgery. He had done something wrong with the paperwork, and ultimately had to leave that business and give up his license because of it. But they put him in charge of the money for their campaigns. They ran him for council over and over again. They ran him for mayor. And, despite that red flag, they kept supporting him until the bitter end. And even now are, still giving him a pass.
Wow. So he came up through the establishment ranks, right? There wasn't a progressive organization that kind of pushed this guy, right?
Yeah, no, certainly not a progressive by any means. Middlesex Borough is an interesting town. It's one of the few towns here in Middlesex County that's kind of a swing town, a district where sometimes the Republicans win, sometimes the Democrats win. So there's a little bit of a healthy split between the two parties there. But for whatever reason, the Democrats in that town got behind this guy and put him up for the highest office and got him in there. And now the whole town is having to pay the consequences of having a corrupt mayor. And thankfully, it was only one term. Some of these other mayors we look at, we see that they've had a long dynasty of corruption.
Oh, of course. And this is the last question I have for you before we move on to the next topic, is how much did he save those people with that sewer, switching off the sewer? Do you know by any chance?
Yeah, we don't know. One of our fantastic reporters here, Dave Polakevich, has been covering Mayor DeMura since before he joined our team, and he was the one who was at that meeting and just has started to report some of the details out. But the way it works basically is if you use a certain amount of water above a certain threshold, then you get an extra charge for the sewer. These 40 or so folks were exempt from getting that charge. Not all of them hit the threshold that actually would have been charged, but some were, and some did get out from under it. And hopefully they'll have to eventually pay the bill.
Yeah, totally.
So, one corrupt mayor down, a few more to go. We'll move on to the next story. This is a big win for the environmental movement. I was so proud to have played a small part in this over the past few years.
I'm sorry.
See, it's all right.
Okay, there we go.
You can see this is a video from Food and Water Watch. Some of the highlights of the past 10 years fighting against fracking in the Delaware River Basin. Basically, you all know the Delaware River is a historic and beautiful place where drinking water for 13 million people comes from. Plans to build fracking wells 10 years ago were the cause of massive community outrage. The organization I work for, Food and Water Watch, was one that was leading the charge to get a ban on fracking in the entire Delaware River Basin. The Delaware River Basin is an area that is located in 4 different states. So there's actually a commission where each state has a representative and the federal government gets a representative. And, we worked very hard to get that commission to vote on a full permanent ban on fracking in the basin. And we won this Thursday morning. Finally, after more than 10 years of fighting, the DRBC voted 4-0 to ban fracking in that region. So basically anywhere where water flows ultimately into the Delaware River, in all those counties along the west coast of New Jersey, in all the sort of east coast of Pennsylvania, and also parts of New York and Delaware, fracking is not allowed ever again. And we were able to protect this really important water source that serves 13 million people. Notably, the federal representative on the DRBC abstained from the vote. So Joe Biden's administration did not participate in the banning of the fracking in this region. All 4 states did vote for the ban. So that's New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York, and Delaware. The governors of those states have ultimately gone on the record and supported a ban on fracking, whereas Joe Biden and his representative refused to, did not actually support this ban. Sort of the reason given was, well, we're new here. We're still figuring it out. And since we just started a new administration, we're going to not vote yes or no on this ban. But, it goes to show you we still have a long way to go with getting the federal government to the right position on things like dangerous drilling and climate crisis and pollution prevention. So a big win, but still more work to be done. And I was just so proud to have been a small part of this over the past 10 years.
Great job, Charlie, man. I have 2 questions. So the first question is, the land around in that area, is it all public or is it some private? Is it some both?
No, this is huge areas of these states. So it's mostly privately owned land, and there was a lot of concern that people were gonna sign leases with fracking companies, and that they would come in and try to extract the natural gas that is contained in the what's called the shale underneath this part of the country. Some parts of the country have this kind of shale where you can use this dangerous practice to get what is commonly referred to as natural gas, but it's not so natural how they get it. And it's basically it's methane is what it is. And it causes real problems for our climate. Not only does the drilling sometimes pollute water and even cause earthquakes, but the substance itself, methane, is one of the most dangerous greenhouse gases there is. It has a major impact on the greenhouse effect, which is causing global warming and extreme weather. And the methane in this drilling process, a lot of it actually escapes into the air and contributes to the climate crisis. But then the stuff that doesn't escape gets burned for energy. And that obviously also causes problems for our air and our water. So big win for this region. This is one area where we don't have to worry about the dangerous impacts of fracking. Now we just have to get the other areas to catch up and do the right thing. Because if it's good enough for us here in the Delaware River Basin, gosh, everybody else deserves the same, clean air, clean water protections.
100%. I totally agree with you. And it's funny you talk about that. Natural gas is not so natural. The same as clean coal is not so clean, right? So the question I want to ask you as the water, especially as part of the Water Watch, and congrats again, and we appreciate your hard work. If you had to spread to another chapter, let's say the Clean Water, your organization was set up like a chapter or something where you want to show exactly how you guys were successful to another area, tell me what would be something you say to them, and also what was a pivotal secret sauce to what you guys did?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, for me, the most important part was working within a coalition. So we were not the only group that was fighting this fight, but I thought we worked really well with some of the other groups in this area. When we're dealing with 4 different states, there's definitely going to be different groups with different backstories and different interests, but we were able to work in collaboration with a whole group of folks from New Jersey, but also on the other side of the Delaware. And that was actually, where I kind of started was developing our organization in Pennsylvania 10 years ago, and working with folks who were already more established, learning from them, but also contributing where I could and where we could as an organization to ultimately mobilize regular people, because at the end of the day, activists alone can't do it. We need people to step up. And we had some pretty massive rallies, 10 years ago when this plan to frack the Delaware was first proposed. And that was ultimately enough to stop it, to get a protection in place temporarily. And then after 10 years of fighting to keep that protection in place, we've now secured permanent protection for this region. So it's the type of thing that I think persistence pays off. You need to be persistent, but you also need to be passionate. And ultimately, we need to get as many people involved as possible. So it's about activating those regular people, people who just, don't want to see the world get worse and want to make sure that the next generation has clean water. So we worked with people of all backgrounds, ages, and in many different groups in many different states to do it. And so it's really about being able to work within a coalition to have everybody push in the same direction and make sure that we're having the maximum impact.
Awesome. That's great to hear, Charlie.
Cool. Well, thanks for the question. So moving on, we got 2 more stories. This is a unfortunate situation here at Rutgers. The Board of Governors met this week. The Board of Governors is sort of the most powerful entity at Rutgers. They get to decide who the president of the university is, what the budget is, and all sorts of things. Governor Murphy gets to appoint a majority of the members. So 8 of the 15 members are governor appointments. And a big change happened where now 2 members are going to be replaced, including the only Latino member on the board. So Martin Perez, who was appointed actually by Governor Christie and served 2 terms on the board, is going to be replaced by an Irish politician named Kevin Egan. Kevin is the son of the Assemblyman Joe Egan, of course, based here in New Brunswick, where between the 2 of them, they've held a council seat since the 1970s. And the younger man, Kevin Egan, is going to be sworn in to the Rutgers Board of Governors, replacing the only Latino member. That means of all 15 seats on the board, I believe all but 2 are held by white people. And there is now no longer a Latino representative. Governor Murphy kind of dodged my question on this one time, and then I asked him again, and he basically glossed over this representation issue. It's not the first time that the Latino community has not gotten representation because of this governor. Of course, one of the fastest growing ethnic groups in the state of New Jersey, and no Latino or Hispanic representative was put on the redistricting commission. Instead, Murphy put a political ally of Kevin McCabe, Gary Taffet, an insurance businessman who was fined by the Securities and Exchanges Commission for an insider trading investigation back when he was involved in the McGreevey administration here in New Jersey. And currently his business that he works for is under investigation reportedly for pay-to-play violations in the state of New Jersey. So instead of putting a Latino person on to represent that community, another white political appointee to that important commission that's going to decide where redistricting goes. So Governor Murphy, not exactly showing his love for the Latino community in his appointments, his choices of nominations. And now the Rutgers board, for the first time in a while, will have no Latino representative. Instead, this city councilman here from New Brunswick is going to take his seat at the next meeting. They did have, of course, their meeting this week where the Rutgers board refused to answer any questions about their financial situation. The university hit very hard by the COVID pandemic. They passed a resolution to essentially borrow more money, and they refused to answer any questions about it, including what financial institutions they're going to work with. There, 3 members of the Board of Governors who work in the finance sector all had to recuse themselves from the vote, potentially due to conflicts of interest. And again, the board chairman refused to answer any questions about that. They did have a nice little farewell to Martin Perez and the other board member who's leaving, but this was the end of his term. And again, no Latino representative on the board. There is a vacancy on the board, but that's one that the Board of Trustees gets to pick who has that. So maybe next month they'll pick someone. We'll see if maybe the Latino community gets a representative out of that decision. But Governor Murphy, so far, his appointments to the board have been, I'll say, disappointing. This is a board that a lot of folks on it are millionaires. Some of them are, don't even live in New Jersey. And again, no Latino representative. Another thing, when Governor Murphy was running, he certainly led the students at Rutgers University to believe that he wanted to appoint a student. And he said, that's a good idea. We should have a student on the Rutgers Board of Governors. He's made several appointments. None of them are students. So what some framed as a promise by Governor Murphy is in the category of unfulfilled promises in that regard as well. So, yeah, what do you think of our fine Board of Governors here?
What you just pointed out, that fact that there's governors that do not live in New Jersey. Wow, that just reminds me of the situation that just happened in Texas, that there were people who were part of the energy board that were not living in Texas. So, I mean, that should be a mandate. If you're going to be on the Rutgers governor board, you should at least live in New Jersey, and they should have a mandate to have at least one or maybe two seats given to students. Maybe one seat for a student and one seat for an alumni. What you think, Charlie?
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I mean,
Yeah.
and they do have a seat for a student, but not a voting seat. So basically,
no, come on.
you might as well just be in the audience at that point. But
Exactly.
you touch on an issue that's near and dear to my heart. So Governor Christie, of course, signed the New Jersey First Act, which requires all employees and officers of the government to actually live in New Jersey. And this is a law that I don't think, I don't think they were thinking about the Rutgers Board of Governors when they passed this law. They were thinking about people like teachers and firefighters and police, and they wanted to force them to live in New Jersey. And so they created this whole system that requires them to live in New Jersey unless they can get a special exception from a board. But because that law says employees or officers, it should apply to the Rutgers Board of Governors. And I filed a lawsuit in 2018 to try to get these out-of-state board members kicked off of the Rutgers board, because if sanitation workers and teachers have to follow this law, certainly the millionaires who serve on the Rutgers Board of Governors should have to be residents in New Jersey as well. We have 9 million residents here. I think we could probably find 15 of them to be on the Rutgers board without having to go out of state to get people. But unfortunately, my lawsuit was not successful after more than a year of back and forth with the court and Rutgers. We went up against some very tough lawyers, but I had a very good lawyer as well. We ultimately did not prevail. Judge Jacobson in Mercer County ruled that they're volunteers technically, so they don't have to live in New Jersey. And so we have a situation where several of the board members do not live in the state. They don't have to live with the consequences of their decisions. Basically, they get to, one of them lives in Illinois, another in North Carolina. And, back in the day, they would just fly here for the day, go to a board meeting, shut down the public and ignore the public, and then hop on a plane back. Now they don't even have to do the plane. It's all on Zoom.
Yeah, it's all on Zoom. So my question is, give me an example of something they would rule on, or even something that was very important recently that they ruled on, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, how the university is going to respond to the pandemic is a big thing. Are the dorms going to be open? What classes are going to be offered? How much are they going to charge? The tuition is sort of the big decision that they make every summer is, what is the tuition going to be for in-state? What is the tuition going to be for out-of-state? And ultimately balancing that $4.3 billion budget is probably the most important function they have. To that end, there is a rule that says, athletics coaches and their salaries, if they're a certain size, have to go through the Board of Governors. So when Coach Schiano returned to Rutgers after, leaving us for several years, he came back. He was signed to a $32 million contract that the Board of Governors approved. I was there that day. The board did not even show up. The board phoned into that meeting. This was before the pandemic, and the public would speak. We each got 2 minutes to talk about this $32 million contract, and understandably, not everybody thought it was the best idea for Rutgers to be spending that much money on one football coach. Nevertheless, they plowed through and they did it. They've also made some bad deals with Robert Wood Johnson Barnabas Health Systems, the hospital system here, the largest healthcare system in New Jersey. They've increasingly been giving away parts of the university to Robert Wood for them to take over, essentially privatizing big sectors of the university and its healthcare and medical school side. And so those are all decisions that came through the Board of Governors, and that the Board of Governors passed without much listening to the public, right? The public is very, very often ignored or silenced, even like I was this week. I just tried to ask a question and they yelled at me and said that I need to read the rules. When of course they didn't know what the rules were.
Wow. Yeah, man, thank you so much for breaking that down. I love how much knowledge you have on this subject. Now, the question first, I want to say Governor Murphy himself is a millionaire. I remember that when he first ran. And for him to just be giving away these seats probably to his friends is just atrocious. And also, these are very big decisions that people close to New Jersey who live in New Jersey, not somebody from Illinois, and who you said South Carolina, what else? South Carolina?
North Carolina.
North Carolina, to be making the decisions of how much tuition should cost and how much to pay the coach. So was that a contract for $32 million for how many years?
It was a 4-year deal.
4-year deal. Wow, that's crazy. And what sport does he?
Football.
Football. Wow. Man.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't. Is football a big attraction?
Or I apologize. It's an 8-year deal. 8-year
okay,
deal.
It's an 8-year deal.
$4 million a year.
Is it that big of an attraction that maybe you can argue that is bringing in so many accolades or whatever? What do you think?
A lot of people have been trying to make it a big thing for a long time, but at the end of the day, I think we won 3 games this year, and we literally could not even have an audience in the stands. So there was no tickets to be sold. All that was a wash because of the pandemic. So I think, in retrospect, definitely a bad move to put so much money into this one person. And my thing with that contract is, okay, if it works out, great, but don't have it where you have to pay the guy even if you fire him, right? But the contract is so favorable that, if they fire him,
they still got
they might still have to pay him not to work. And that's unfortunately happened with the last coach and with other athletic directors and things like that, where the contracts are just so crazy good for them that, even if the guy sucks and you let him go, you're still on the hook for these millions and millions of dollars. So it's just a bad deal, on its face.
The last question I have for you before we move on is, I hear you talk about you're able to ask, Governor Murphy these questions and different people questions. How are you doing that right now in COVID? And does the public have access to the same way to ask questions? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, as a member of the press, I am, invited to the governor's media events, and I've, before the pandemic, would usually only go if they were here in New Brunswick or in Middlesex County. I would, try to be there, and governor called on me a few times at those events. But since the pandemic, he's actually been having these briefings that I'm sure you've seen, televised briefings several times a week, and I've been able to go many times. It's a little frustrating because the governor has a way of responding to your question without answering it. So, I would drive down to Trenton, almost an hour, wait my turn to ask a few questions, and then kind of get a non-answer or a dismissive answer. So I don't go as much as I did in the beginning of the pandemic, but there are a number of opportunities to ask questions at Zoom events or things like that as well. Certainly, with like the Rutgers Board of Governors, that's one where they have to have the meeting open to the public, but they crack down on who can ask questions and who can, how much time you get and stuff like that. So I remember when it used to be 3 minutes. I remember you used to, be able to kind of ask about anything. They try to limit you to only things that are on the agenda, and now they don't even answer questions at all. Certainly, this Zoom world we're living in has emboldened some of the worst people that are already in power, like this chairman of the Rutgers board, Mark Engelson. He's a wannabe dictator. He acts like a dictator when he's running the meeting. So, like, for instance, when I was asking questions about this $300 million borrowing, he was munching on some snacks and, telling me that I'm out of order for asking questions and I need to be respectful or whatever. It's really embarrassing. He's a disgrace to our fine university. But this is how it is when people are on Zoom and they don't actually have to look you in the eye. They're the bad guys get worse.
Wow. Yeah. So I want to give a shout out to our chat real quick. Holly Horn, much love to you. The love always. Much love to you always. Thank you for being in the chat. If you have any questions for Charlie, and just let you know again, this is our new bi-weekly show focused on New Jersey. It's the New Jersey Power Hour, or New Jersey Progressive Power Hour. And I'm going to say in partnership with New Brunswick Today. I think, Charlie, that's how we're going to do the graphics. I want to make sure that newbrunswicktoday.com, by the way, everyone, check them out, gets as much love as possible. And I just want to say about Governor Murphy, I was skeptical when he first ran. Here's another millionaire running for office. Over there in Illinois, they have, I think his name is Spitzer or something like that.
Pritzker, yeah.
Yeah. All these millionaires, running for high office. It's nothing new. It's always been going on. But I'm curious, do you know if there's any challenger on the horizon from the Democratic side, Charlie? I know I'm throwing this question at you. We didn't talk about this before, but I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see a progressive challenge Governor Murphy, because if not, Governor Murphy's going to say he's the progressive. And there won't be anybody there to say otherwise. But by the looks of it, I have not heard of anyone interested or mounting a campaign within the Democratic Party. I'm sure there'll be Republicans running, and I'm sure there might be one or more, independent or third party candidates. But I think it'd be really important for somebody to challenge Governor Murphy in the primary. But we're just over a month away from the deadline to do that, and no one has declared that they're going to do it.
Yeah, I don't suspect anything happening, even though I would love to see it. But I think I see in the chat, Holly Horn said, thoughts on Murphy? He seems decent, right? And I think you kind of touched on that just now. And I talked to you about that, and that's one of the things that inspired me to get this show going, because just like most people, I don't focus that much on state politics, local politics, as much as I would like. And from a broad point of view, I'm looking at what Governor Murphy is doing, and I'm like, okay, he doesn't seem to be doing a bad job. We got $15 an hour minimum wage passed at the state level, and he's doing things here and there. We just got the marijuana passed, even though he didn't. I just learned that from you, actually, that he promised that within the first 100 days, and then he didn't come through. So this is how a lot of things that governors promise when they're running, and then they don't come through with it. Just like what we just talked about, putting a student on the Rutgers governor board, because a lot of people are not paying that much attention. There's not a lot of political consequences, right? So I'm going to throw it back at you, Charlie, to kind of answer. She said thoughts on Murphy.
Yeah, and thanks, Holly, for watching and chiming in. I do think that Murphy has done a number of really good things for the state. I also can't help but feel that the bar is really low, right? We had Chris Christie before him, and before him
real
was,
quick,
was
Charlie,
John
I just want to say, Holly said, can you imagine if Christie were still the governor? And that was before you just started talking about Christie, but I just want to throw that in. Go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah, no, and we lived through 8 years of Chris Christie, and it was really damaging to New Jersey and damaging to the United States of America, because we got to remember, Chris Christie paved the path for Donald Trump. He kind of, proved this model of being a bully and ultimately, selling out your state in a corrupt way. And so
100%.
he did that to us. We were victims of Chris Christie for 8 years. And so we really know firsthand how bad a governor can be.
Can I jump in here real quick, Charlie?
Yeah.
First, I want to say quick shout out to Right Church, Wrong Pew. Much love to you. Thank you for joining the chat and chatting. But I wanted the couple of things I highlight for me with Christie was how he took away the gas, or he added the gas tax. I think he did something to the gas tax where now we're paying. My parents used to come over and used to fill up because they had cheaper gas here, and they came over here and was like, we get cheaper gas over in New York. Right? Go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah, oh, he did. He did one thing that he did towards the end was increase the gas tax.
That's what it was. He increased the gas tax.
Yeah, I do think it was needed because our roads and bridges are not in good shape, and that's
no. I agree with that point, but the problem is it's not a regressive tax. That's not the right word. It's a tax on the middle class or on the majority of people, where you could probably find that if they had the millionaires tax, which I do think Phil Murphy's he's advocating for, right?
Yeah, and that's definitely one thing that's a big improvement is that he's willing to
advocate for that,
kind of be on the right side of an issue like that.
Yeah.
I do think there's some shortcomings of Phil Murphy, though. He's not as effective as we would like, right? If he was able to get these things done, we might feel differently, but a lot of it has been kind of stuck because
let me ask you this: do you think he really believes in trying to get this millionaires passed, or is it just posturing?
It's hard to say. I certainly think that in terms of crafting a budget, it helps to be able to count on a lot of money from the richest residents, which we have a lot of people with a lot of money in New Jersey. So I think that pragmatically, he wants to be able to get reelected, and to do that, he doesn't want to raise taxes on the middle class if he can help it. And the only way is to get the money from somewhere. And I certainly think that, he probably does believe that it's fair to tax millionaires more. But I just feel like, there's a lot of balls he's dropped. There's a lot of things that he hasn't been able to deliver on, either because he's, not politically experienced, right? You've got to remember this is his first elected office he's ever been in, is being thrown right into the governor's office and having a pandemic in the middle of it. So, he's kind of outmatched by some of these, corrupt political forces that have been in power a long time and would probably will be in power longer than him.
He was an ambassador for Obama before that, right?
Correct, the ambassador to Germany.
Yeah. So before we get to the last show, because I know we got 5 minutes, but we could go a little bit over. I think I'm not in a rush. Are you in a rush, Charlie?
No, I'm having fun.
Good. Okay, so we'll finish that last story in a moment. There was one more point I wanted to make about Charlie. Man, I'm sorry, not Charlie, about Phil Murphy. I think I lost it, but once again, I want to give a quick shout out to Andrew Matson. Is anyone in New Jersey state politics more progressive than Murphy? Now, are you talking about at the governor level? Andrew, let us know. I'm going to let Charlie do this last story. And then if anyone has any questions, we're going to address that before we end this show. Go ahead, Charlie.
Great. Well, and thanks again for the opportunity. So the fifth story is the most dangerous and most troubling story of the month. The Union County Democratic Committee has followed in the footsteps of Middlesex County's Democratic organization by canceling their elections this year. Wow. So just to put this in perspective, for those of you who don't know what the party committee is or what it does, these are neighborhood level offices. It's the most grassroots office that exists in New Jersey. Every single election district has 2 seats in both parties. They're elected in the primary, usually every 2 years. And it's the type of thing that's a great entry point into politics, kind of representing just your little area of your town within the political party. They do have significant power when it comes to elections in terms of deciding who gets the party's endorsement and the favorable ballot position that comes with it. But also when someone dies in office or gets promoted to a higher office or gets indicted and leaves office for bad reasons, whatever the case, the party committee gets to fill their seat for the remainder of the year. So we see situations where, for instance, the Assemblywoman Nancy Pinkin became the county clerk. Her seat opened up. Who gets to decide who gets to join the New Jersey Assembly? Well, it's those party committee people that are elected by their neighborhood. And so obviously these positions are important. And that's why so much attention is paid to them and why people want to run for them. But they are, like more manageable types of things to run for. So people who are just getting started in politics, instead of running for Congress or governor, they can run for their neighborhood rep position and actually get into the party apparatus and be able to be making decisions about their town and their political party. Well, in Middlesex County last summer, in the beginning of the pandemic, the party committee members themselves voted to cancel next year's elections, which is now this year, 2021 elections that were scheduled for all, I think it's 1,200 seats. I think 1,230 seats here in Middlesex County, supposed to be elected in the June primary. That has been canceled. Even though these folks ran for and won 2-year terms, they said, you know what? Let's just make our terms 4 years. And they actually got away with it. They said, we're going to change our bylaws to double our terms. They did this on a phone call. And they said, we're canceling the 2021 elections, and we're not going to have another election until 2023. And from now on, we're going to only run every 4 years instead of every 2 years. Permanent change. They cited the pandemic, and they said that they were inspired by get this, Republicans to do this. Because here in Middlesex, we have a system where the Republicans would have their elections in the even numbered years, and the Democrats would have their elections in the odd numbered years. The Republicans were the first to make a move, and they said, we're going to delay our elections till next year. So no 2020 elections, but we'll do them in 2021. And then the Democrats said, well, if the Republicans are having their elections in 2021, we can't have ours at the same time. We'll have to delay them a whole 2 extra years and just double the length of our term and not have those elections till 2023. Well, now Union County has followed suit. They took a vote this month to do the same exact thing. They were supposed to have elections for all their hundreds of seats this June, and the power players that run that party were able to get a change to the bylaws that cancels those elections and permanently doubles the length of their terms. So now in Union County and in Middlesex County, every single Democrat, more than 1 million people probably, just lost their right to vote or run in these neighborhood level grassroots elections. This is a sign of fascism. This is a serious problem when elections are canceled or delayed. We have seen some terms extended and things delayed with Board of Education, with a mayor's office in Wrightstown, and also a election they forgot to have in Highland Park for council. But this is something that is more widespread. This is, we're talking about 2 years of missing out on the elections, and it's being done in this moment of the crisis, with the pandemic being used as an excuse to take away our rights to run for office and to vote for office. So I am currently seeking legal counsel to bring a lawsuit against both of these political parties to stop this and restore our elections. If you'd like to help, please reach out to me. My info is not hard to find. It's at the bottom of every article on NewBrunswickToday.com. But we are going to not take this lying down. We are going to fight, and we are going to defend our democracy.
Wow, this is huge news. This is basically a coup d'etat at the local level. You always hear the saying, the famous saying, never let a crisis go to waste.
Yes.
And they sure did not let this COVID crisis not affect what they wanted. You know, this reminds me of when Bloomberg voted himself or convinced the city board to give him another term, and in return they gave themselves another term. So, like, what do you think there will be any political consequences for all this? What this is? You said there's 3 different organizations. You got the Union County, which where I am, and then you have these other boards. You think there's any political consequences, Charlie?
I'm going to work hard to make sure there are. I mean, I think that not enough people know about this yet.
I did not know about this.
Yeah, no. And you know, to be fair, not a lot of people know about the party committee to begin with, but it is such an important grassroots tool for activists who are getting started to be able to run and be able to participate in these elections. And the power players know this, and they know that it's a vulnerability for them, and they would just as well rather not have the elections. So I think it's incumbent on everybody who knows about it and understands it to remind people constantly. So I always have here at my desk the list of all 10 of the bylaws committee members from Middlesex County who pushed this decision, and I call into the county commissioners meeting and I read that list so that everybody in the county knows who's responsible for taking away their elections. And again, we're going to hopefully have this come before a judge and let a judge decide whether this is our democracy or not. But yeah, I have the list right here, and I've got, the 10 people to blame for this, and we're going to make sure everybody knows in their towns that the reason you don't get a choice this year is because of these people.
Yeah, 100%. Wow, this is I really I'm looking forward to clipping this story and trying to get it out there, because it's just something that you don't know about when these things go under the radar. It's like, how many other things just go without knowing? This, as we wrap up the show, had the corrupt mayor, who were disactivating the charges for sewer systems for his friends, so they didn't get billed for using the sewage system. Then we have the elections of the Rutgers board, people who are out of town getting put on these boards, who are millionaires. So it's just a plush position to make them feel important. And we talked about the marijuana in New Jersey. Man, there's so many great things. I'm looking forward to future shows and finding out what are the other things you can shine the light on. Charlie, you want to say something real quick?
Yeah, no, there's good and bad. So I thought it was a great show that we got to talk about some of the good things, like that fracking ban and legalizing marijuana, but also, things aren't going to get better if we don't shine a light on the not so good things about our state. And so that's why I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be with you this morning and speak to your wonderful audience about it.
We're going to spend another 5 minutes. We're going to give some love to the chat room. And then I have one thing that I want to chat about. First things first, I'm going to bring up, so the question that right church, wrong pew, I believe that was you, or, oh no, I'm sorry. It was Andrew Matson who asked about the senator, about the progressive alternative to Charlie Murphy. And he wanted to know, because I was curious, what level was he talking about? And he said, are there any progressives at the Senate level, assembly level, at any of those levels? Now, I wanted to bring up Jason Crushu, who is running right now for state Senate. Please check him out. He's part of PD of NJ, which is Progressive Democrats of New Jersey. This is their Facebook page. Please look them up as well. I went to their website. The website is down right now currently, but they're a great organization that I've chatted with a couple of people from this organization that are excellent. And definitely look out for these people. And then I'm going to give that question over to Charlie. Are there any progressives, noticeable progressives in the Senate and the Assembly?
Yeah, it's slim pickings in terms of the incumbents. Definitely. I think that Loretta Weinberg is somebody who was looked to as one of the most progressive legislators in the state. She has announced she's not running again. She's going to retire. However, we do have a representative in the southern part of Middlesex County named Andrew Zwicker, who's promising. He's been in the Assembly, and Kip Bateman, the Republican who has been in that Senate seat, has announced he's not running again. And it looks like a deal has been made for Andrew Zwicker to have a clear shot at moving on up to the Senate. So that's, one person who's, I would say, a potential progressive, someone who has done some good things like support ranked choice voting. Awesome. He's, one of the people who are in the legislature, one of the least machine controlled people. So Andrew Zwicker is promising. But yeah, most of the folks in
Senate.
in this,
do you mean the state Senate or the Senate?
The state senate. The state
Okay,
senate.
I was just curious. Go ahead.
Yeah. But yeah, I am really excited about Jason running against Joe Cryan in LD20. That's going to be a very exciting race because Jason has a good team of 2 other people to run for assembly with him. So he's got a full team, and the incumbents actually are going to have to find a full team because they're split. The assemblyman Jamel Holly, who I think we played a clip of him earlier, speaking about marijuana. He is not running with Cryan. He's going to run against Cryan, trying to move up from the assembly to the Senate. So it's going to be a 3-way race. You've got Jamel Holly, the incumbent Joe Cryan, and this, really solid slate of progressives challenging. So it's still going to be an uphill battle for Jason and his team, but it is definitely at this point one of the most exciting races this year.
Awesome. So you know what? This gives me an idea. Maybe in 2 weeks, we should dedicate a segment to this and see if we could break things down. Maybe even bring Jason Crushu on the show, because I've had him on the show at least twice already. He's a great guy. I would love to have him on. Go ahead, Charlie. What you said?
I said, I saw your interview with him. It was great.
Oh, yeah. So we would love to have him on the show and promote our progressive people. I want to read this. Right Church, Wrong Pew. Just wanted to thank you, Charlie, for bringing up all these stories and shining light on this. Let me see what else. Andrew put Valerie Huddle or Gordon Johnson for the Loretta Senate seat.
Yeah, it's starting to be another exciting race there. So like I said, Loretta Weinberg not running again. The 2 assembly people who normally run with her are going to duke it out to see who gets to be in her Senate seat. So that's Valerie Veneri Huddle and Gordon Johnson. They're both in the assembly.
Both progressive.
Gordon Johnson has gotten the support of the party, so he's going to be on the line, as they say.
Okay.
And
so he's establishment while Valerie's progressive.
Well, I mean, it's definitely they have different constituencies that support them, but they're both typically vote the same way on these issues. I do know that the Working Families Alliance has endorsed Valerie Veneri Huddle, so there's a bit of a rift there, a bit of a 2 different groups there. So Working Families is going to back her off the line, but the machine, if you will, or the Democratic Party is going to back Gordon Johnson for that seat. But yeah, until recently, they've been on the same page about almost everything because they're running mates and represent the same area. But that will be interesting. They're both going to have a full slate, it looks like, challenging one another for the Senate and Assembly seats.
That's interesting. Do you think we could get any of them on the show? What you think?
I think they want to get votes. So they should.
Well, we have Right Church, Wrong Pew. He says, or he or she says, I'm in Essex County. How can we find out if this is happening in each county? So I think he might be talking about or he or she might be talking about what happened with the coup d'etat stuff. Go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah. I did not hear about anything in Essex. I'm not sure what schedule they're on, but Democratic committee is a great starting point. So if you don't already know who your Democratic committee representative is, you should find that out. I would, reach out to the Essex County Democratic Organization and find out, what election district you're in. And you may be surprised. Sometimes these seats are actually vacant. And maybe if you just ask nicely, you could get appointed to the seat. But there are important decisions to be made there. And certainly, the elections should be happening at least every 2 years. But some counties have been cracking down and changing it up. So you want to make sure that's not happening. I did not see anything about Essex making a change, though. So hopefully you'll have elections, if not this year, within a year.
Gotcha. So I'm always about trying to get people active. I love it when people run for office. That's what the Progressive War Room, a show that I do, is all about, trying to demystify running for office, like all the little nitty-gritty things that you don't hear about in other shows on how to run. I love bringing on people so that we can expose that, so that people regular people can understand that it's not that hard. It's not that mystical thing that only rich people and people with connections have to do. So I'm saying all that to say, if you want to know what you can do in New Jersey, contact my email address, casestudyqb@gmail.com. And I'm going to try to reach out to you. We could chat about some ideas, but most likely I'm going to try to funnel you over to Progressive Democrats of New Jersey. I think that's an excellent organization where you can get activated to take action, because that's what this is all about. Charlie, man, thank you so much, Mr. Kratovil. This is Case Study QB's New Jersey Progressive Power Hour in partnership with New Brunswick Today, the man, Charlie Kratovil, who's going to be taking over the show. This is his show. I'm here on the first episode. And hey, if anytime you need me, let me know also, Charlie. But he's going to be doing the show bi-weekly, focused on New Jersey politics from a progressive angle. And as you can tell, he's very knowledgeable. You can ask him things about New Jersey, and most likely he'll be able to answer you. I learned a lot, me personally. These 5 stories, I can't wait to go back and clip it out and listen to this interview again, or the show again. Any last words, Charlie?
Just thank you so much, Case, for the opportunity. I know you've really been getting a lot of people joining your channel, and I'm always excited when I see you get a shout out from some of these big broadcasters out there. So keep up the good work, and thank you again for the opportunity. Thanks everybody for watching, and tune in again in 2 weeks.
Thank you so much. So for the last time, to the chat, Holly Horn, Right Church, Wrong Pew, love that name. Andrew Matson, I know the love always is here somewhere. And Raka 42, trying to get as many people as I can. Let me see any last person. All right, Holly Horn, peace and love. Matthew Ramoth, there we go. Thank you, everybody. Charlie, thank you so much. Everyone have a great week. See you in 2 weeks.